All right, lights on. We are ready to go. We are holding a public hearing today, Tuesday, September 17th, 7:30 p.m. Let's see, to adopt the Illicit Discharge and Detection Elimination IDDE ordinance in order to comply with components of the EPA 2017 MS4 stormwater permit. Now, for those who don't know what that is, I'm going to read some very dry information, and then we can discuss if anyone wants to discuss it. So, the ordinance for illicit discharge for the town of Newton. Section 1, purpose and intent. Purpose is to protect water quality in the town of Newton while providing for the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of town. The intent is to prohibit illicit discharges that often contain pathogens, nutrients, surfactants, and various toxic pollutants by setting up and enforcing an illicit discharge and detection elimination program. Definitions, I am not going through definitions, so anyone who wants to know what they are can go online and read the document. Regulations, under Section 3. The town of Newton may adopt and periodically amend regulations, rules, and/or written guidance related to the terms, conditions, definitions, enforcement, fees, procedures, and administration of this IDDE bylaw by majority vote after conducting a public hearing to receive comments. Such hearings shall be advertised in a newspaper of general local circulation at least 14 days prior to the hearing date. Failure of the town of Newton to issue such rules or regulations or a legal declaration of their invalidity by a court shall not act to suspend or invalidate the effect of this bylaw. Such regulations, rules, and/or guidance may include, without limitation, provisions for the establishment of one or more categories of administrative review approvals for specific types or sizes of projects. Administrative review applications that meet all of the standard requirements may be issued by one or more agents designated in writing by the town of Newton without the requirement of a public hearing as detailed in this bylaw. Administrative review approval shall comply with all other provisions of this bylaw. Severability. The provisions of this bylaw are hereby declared to be severable if any provision, paragraph, sentence, or clause of this bylaw or the application thereof to any person, establishment, or circumstances shall be held invalid. Such invalidity shall not affect the other provisions or applications of this bylaw. Section 5, notification. Notifications of spills or other non-stormwater discharges. As soon as any person responsible for a facility, site, activity, or operation has information of any known or suspected release of pollutants or non-stormwater discharges which are resulting or may result in illicit discharges or pollutants discharging into the town of Newton municipal storm system, state waters, or waters of the United States, said person shall take all necessary steps to ensure the discovery, containment, and cleanup of such release so as to minimize the effects of the discharge. 2, if the substance poses an immediate health or safety concern, the town of Newton and the state of New Hampshire Emergency Services shall be immediately notified. 3, if the substance does not pose an immediate health or safety concern, then the town of Newton Health Department should be notified as soon as possible, however, no later than 24 hours post-event. Transitional provisions under Section 6. Residential property owners shall have 60 days from the effective date of this bylaw to comply with its provisions, provided good cause is shown for the failure to comply with the ordinance during that period. Section 7, illicit discharge and detection elimination. This is the good stuff. 7.1, applicability. Illicit discharges enter the system through either direct connections, such as wastewater piping, either mistakenly or deliberately connected to the storm drains, or by indirect connections. Indirect connections can include failing individual sewage disposal systems, cracked sanitary pipes, spills collected by drain outlets, or by dumping an illicit discharge directly into the storm basin. The illicit discharges result in high levels of pollutants, including heavy metals, toxics, oil and grease, solvents, nutrients, viruses, and bacteria being released directly into the receiving waters of the state or the United States. The MS4 drainage system is not designed to accept, process, or discharge such non-stormwater wastes. The pollutant levels from these illegal discharges degrade the receiving water quality and threaten aquatic wildlife and human health. 7.2 is prohibition of illicit discharges. No person shall discharge or cause to be discharged into the municipal storm drain system or water courses any materials, including but not limited to pollutants or waters containing any pollutants that cause or contribute to a violation of applicable water quality standards other than storm water. The following items are not considered as illicit discharges: waterline flushing, uncontaminated groundwater infiltration, uncontaminated pumped groundwater, discharges from potable water sources except landscape irrigation and lawn watering, foundation and footing drains including crawl space pumps, air conditioning condensation, diverted pumped stream flows, springs and riparian habitats and wetlands, and rising groundwater, dechlorinated swimming pool discharges, discharge from street sweeping, dye testing as long as the officials are made aware prior to the test, non-stormwater discharge permitted under an NPDES permit waiver or waste discharge order administered under the authority of the US EPA, provided that the discharge is in full compliance with the requirements of the permit, waiver, or order and applicable laws and regulations. Almost done here, guys. Discharge for which advance written approval is received from the Highway Department and the Planning Board. See, Mike, we mentioned you. 7.3, prohibition of illicit connections. The construction, use, maintenance, or continued existence of illicit connections to the storm drain system is prohibited. B, this prohibition expressly includes, without limitation, illicit connections made in the past, regardless of whether the connection was permissible under law or practices applicable or prevailing at the time of connection. C, a person is considered to be in violation of this ordinance if the person connects a line conveying sewage to the MS4 or allows such a connection to continue. 7.4, responsibility for administration. The Highway Department shall administer, implement, and enforce the provisions of the IDDE ordinance and shall prepare the associated regulations. Regulations can be more stringent, but must be at least as stringent as the MS4's. Any powers granted or duties imposed upon the authorized enforcement agency may be delegated in writing by the Board of Selectmen to persons or entities acting in the beneficial interest of or in the employ of the Town of Newton. The standards set forth herein are promulgated pursuant to these ordinances, and regulations are minimum standards. Therefore, these regulations do not intend nor imply that compliance by any person will ensure that there will be no contamination, pollution, nor unauthorized discharge of pollutants. 7.4, again, there's a couple of typos here. IDDE enforcement of prohibitions. The Highway Department of the Town of Newton may order anyone responsible for an illicit connection or discharge to an MS4 to, 1, eliminate it, 2, take measure to minimize the discharge of pollutants until such time as the illicit connection or discharge shall be eliminated, and 3, remediate the contamination. That is the whole part of the illicit discharge ordinance that is proposed that we are here to discuss and to potentially adopt. Does anyone want to speak to this? Mike, do you have any comments since there is Highway Department mentioned in this?
Yeah, I'll make it brief. Mike Pavero, road agent, Newton, New Hampshire. Months ago, I touched upon this briefly, that the MS4, they've been talking about this for years, but they're implementing it now. Somewhere, and I don't know if you want to do it as a warrant or you're going to do it as a budget, some money will need to be put in there for the Highway Department because testing has to be done. There's all sorts of regulatory stuff that's going to kick in on that. And there's no budget. We don't have a line item, obviously, you guys know that, for any of this testing or monitoring or anything else that goes with it.
Well, lucky as it may be, we are coming into budgeting season. So if you can provide the board with some...
I have no idea what it's going to cost. It's absolutely zero.
Well, we can't say zero on the...
No, but I'm being honest with you. I mean, there's going to have to be some funds put in there. Obviously, we're a small town with drainage outfalls, because they're not worried about the open drainage situation. It's just the contained drainage with outfalls. We've got a couple that go into Country Pond, things of that nature. Those will have to be monitored and tested. Mike Vignelli, the town engineer, is doing the reports, and I'll need to get with him and maybe come up with a best guesstimate what it may cost, but I won't have any hard numbers. I
Okay,
mean,
no, best guess, that's what a budget is best guess. So what do you think you're going to need for the
I
following
can
year
talk
in order to do
to
this?
Mike Vignali, the town engineer, and come up with some line item that we can put it under the highway department.
Okay, sounds good.
Right.
Anything else for us?
No, that's it for that item.
Wait, he wants to talk?
If you can come up to the podium, state who you are.
Just, it's Tom Sherman, I'm state senator, I'm from Rye. But I did just want to jump in for a second and offer two resources. This question of how much this is going to cost to be compliant, one would be the NHMA, the Municipal Association. Because they are an association of municipalities, I'm certain that another of their members has been through this process and can help get a potential number for what it would cost to be compliant. And then the second would be, I'm happy to do a connection with DES. I sit on multiple water quality commissions, and I'd be happy to talk to them tomorrow and see if we can get you at least a contact for you to work with to get some notion of how much this would cost, what will be required in terms of testing, if that'd be helpful.
It would definitely be helpful,
Happy to do that.
and that might take some burden off of our road agent.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And I'm shouting out to him because he's done incredible work making sure the water is safe in New Hampshire.
Right.
So thank you for that.
Now, since this, sorry,
Oh, I was just going to suggest, we actually already have somebody sort of on staff, our circuit rider, who is actually an expert in the water,
Yeah, she's
this
great.
area. And she can probably give us some accurate numbers based on what she already knows about Newton.
so getting it from her as well
Yep.
would be fine.
Yeah.
But I would still like to see what Tom and anyone else can come up with as well. The more information we have, the better we'll be equipped to propose a budget for it. As far as the actual document itself, there are two typographical errors I'd like to have corrected. Under section 7.2, bullet item says discharge form street sweeping. I'd like it to say discharge from street sweeping. And then the 7.4 should be 7.5 for the last section.
Is this a template provided?
Yeah, this is a draft.
So, but the, I mean, the typos on a template that we got?
This was given to us by the town engineer.
Okay. Just
I will-
curious.
Yeah, I will get back to him, and so you said 7.2 bullet, which one?
Discharge from street sweeping.
Yeah, it says discharge form
see, yeah.
street sweeping. It
Yep, I
should
see
say
it now.
discharge from. I'm just saying, if this is an ordinance and we're going to adopt it, I'd like it to be grammatically correct.
Yep, I will tell him.
If we decide to do any street sweeping.
Still needs to be accurate. Does anybody else have any inputs, questions, concerns, comments, anything about adopting this illicit discharge ordinance? I'm curious, Mike, does this include the sump pump pumping out of the house into the roads or, out on their lawns?
I'm sure it does. When you read that paragraph or one of the lines in the paragraph, it doesn't give the words sump pump, but it does imply sump pumps can't pump out into the street.
Okay. I just wanted to throw that out there because I do know that there is at least one property in town that does on occasion pump out water.
There's more than that in the spring.
It's not saying that they can't pump out, they just can't discharge it down their driveway onto the,
Right, they can put it back into their property. They can take a sump pump and dump it into their yard out back. But the ones that take it and dump it out into the street or the drainage swale, yeah, no can have.
actually, there are some in town where they pump out almost indiscriminately, creating ice hazard zones.
Yeah, there's been a few of them.
Yeah, so, and then the other question would be is, it does mention fees and things like that, so would you be looking, or we as a town be looking at proposing any kind of a fee schedule or penalty schedule for those who do not comply with the ordinance?
I think it's too early to implement that. Let's
Okay,
get the document and see how it unfolds. And most of the people aren't that bad. Between myself and the PD and Bob Leverone, we'll go around and mention to them, listen, you can't pump out there. And I would say 85% of them are pretty responsive. There's always a 10, 15%, whatever, that are a little tougher, but I wouldn't worry about fees at this point.
okay. Anybody else? All right, then I would,
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the ordinance as corrected and to be signed when it has been reprinted.
Second.
okay, now this does show that it's to be signed by the chair and the tax collector. Town clerk selected,
Oh, okay.
just so you know, so if you wanted to have it signed by the chair as part of your motion.
Absolutely.
Okay,
So you vote, because I can probably fix, or Diane can fix this tomorrow, and then we can have you sign it if you want to make
yep, I
a
can do that.
motion to do that. Do you need a motion to do that?
So we have the motion to be signed.
Move for the chair
Oh,
to sign it
okay.
as soon as it's been corrected.
Larry seconded the motion. Last chance for discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, our public hearing has come to an end at 7:44 PM. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming to that.